Welcome to the very first episode of Behind the Sirens, the podcast that dives deep into the lives, challenges and stories of those who serve on the front lines of the emergency services. I'm your host Andrew, the marketing executive at Tough King, and I'm joined by someone who's not just a firefighter, but a champion. Matt Adams, welcome.
Loosely.
Matt Adams is the current British Firefighter Challenge title holder, and he didn't just win, he set a course record with a time of 2 minutes 11 seconds. But today we're going to go beyond the medals and into what really means to wear the uniform. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let's dive straight in, let's get to know you a little bit more. So let's start at the beginning. What first drew you to becoming a firefighter, and was there a moment or a person that inspired you to become?
It's my dad.
Your dad?
Yeah, my dad was in firefighting in Leicestershire for over 20 years. Grew up and that's all I ever knew. There's pictures of me as a little kid with him at the fire station on the fire engine. And I think from the earliest memories I've got, if you asked me what I wanted to do, it was I want to be a firefighter. And I can't really tell you the exact moment of when or why. It's just that my only memories of being a kid is either being with my dad at a fire station, asking my mum to take me to the fire station to be with my dad, and just being around it. And I think it was just the people as well. Like when you saw my dad at work, everyone's having a laugh, everyone was approachable, everyone was just nice. And I guess it helped that my dad was a sub-officer, he was a gaffer, so that kind of helped. As you're kind of the boss's kid, that kind of maybe helped, but everyone that worked there was just nice people. Like I said, everyone's having a laugh, and it just seemed, it's just fascinating. You've got a tool, like loads of tools on it, lots of power stuff, hoses, water, like just seeing the kit is all just fascinating. It's kind of like watching astronauts almost. So from literally, like I said, from early as I can remember, that's all I wanted to do. And it almost felt like as I was going through school and college and university, I was kind of waiting. Like I knew that was what I wanted to become. I was just waiting for the time, for my time to come, sort of thing.
Yeah. So you were waiting for your time to come. So can you describe the feeling of like walking into the fire station for your first shift rather than just like visiting your dad?
It was quite strange. Cause so I did 15 weeks training school, so do your 15 weeks, and then you get assigned your station. And my station was in the town where I grew up.
Okay.
So which was quite nice. And I remember going there, and during my training school, you obviously get all your fire kit, you get your uniform, your actual fire kit, little auxiliary bags, lots of different accessories. And I'd finished university on June the 7th, and I started my whole-time course June the 14th. So I had like 6 days between finishing university and joining the fire service. And I remember coming home, literally the first day, it was like it was the 14th, which I want to say it's a Thursday. Anyway, I put my stuff down, and within about an hour, my mum had signed my name in everything.
Oh.
I was like, what are you doing? She's like, I did anything for your dad. I was like, yeah, but why? Because your handwriting was nothing like mine. And it wasn't Matt Adams, it was Matthew Adams. And she like scribed my service number into everything. So I was like, all right. Which in hindsight, it's funny, it's a nice memory. And I've still got some of the bags that she signed, sort of thing. But so I got all my stuff that my mum signed for me. Obviously finished training school, pass out, go to work. My first station was in a temporary unit because our station was being rebuilt. So we basically turned up to, it could have been a tiles shop. It didn't look like a fire station at all. It was a green shutter and a key pass door. And we're going in there, and it was me and 7 complete strangers. And for the first day, you'd like, straight away sort of reminisce being at my dad's fire station is you go into the engine house or the appliance bay, and there's just a certain smell that fire engines have and fire stations have. And over the years, I try to think, what is that smell? I don't know if it's the rubber of the tyres, if it's burnt out brakes, if it's the actual smoke and, well, by the sounds of the carcinogens on the kit and the BA sets. I don't know what it is, but there's just this specific smell. I mean, walking in, smelling that and thinking, like, I remember doing this as a kid, and now I'm doing it for real, sort of thing. Which was quite a nice feeling, and like putting your kit in a locker and knowing that that's your locker, this is your kit. And ultimately, like that first day in the station, it means you've survived 15 weeks of training school, of which every week they tell you, if you fail your exam, you're gone. And so you have 15 weeks of that, and it does kind of harden you a little, somewhat. So yeah, it's just walking through and knowing that I've survived. I've made it this far.
Yeah.
I'm about to do the thing, and then fast forward 8 years from there, it's just been
Non-stop ever since.
Pretty much, yeah.
Never looking back.
Never looking back. It's the best job in the world.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many things that I've learned over the years, and just meeting different people, because you work with different people, but we go out in society and meet people in the communities that are just the most diverse backgrounds possible. Like you go to some people's house. I remember going to a gentleman's house to fit smoke alarms, and he's like a nuclear physicist, and he's got all these like drawings on the wall. He like worked on reactors, and you think he's talking about things I had literally no idea about. Mm-hmm. You think, well, that's fascinating. The next one, you might go to somebody I remember going to a lady. I just watched 1917, the war film.
Yeah.
And we're walking down like checking for smoke alarms. We're walking down a corridor, and I passed all these pictures on the wall, and they're all like regimental pictures. And there's like 19, I think one was like 1914, and the one was like 1919. I was thinking, yeah, right. I said, who's that? Interesting. Who's that? So that's my dad. So I imagine he fought in the war. Did he survive? I said, yeah, he survived. He like was in the Somme, and just got all these medals out. And she had all these medals. He was like the Sherwood Forest Regiment. He was the first mechanised tank regiment in Britain. Basically, wow. He was the commander of, and it was just again completely and utterly sort of random day. Did not expect to meet somebody and have this conversation, hear all these war stories. But you're in such a fortunate position to interact with people because the fire service is a friendly organisation. Yeah. Most people's interactions are positive. Mm-hmm. We're not there to arrest people. We're not there to, if someone's taken an overdose, for example, of drugs, we're not here to bring them back around. We're just here to help. Yeah. So you're quite fortunate you get to go into people's properties and and ask them questions and then be very open and very honest, and likewise go into some very incredible buildings, kind of historical buildings like cathedrals, and see the inner workings and see libraries and books of which have been sealed for thousands of years and no one's ever seen before. Mm-hmm. So it takes you in such different directions. It is quite an incredible job. Yeah. But yeah, first day on the job was packing stuff into a locker, sitting down waiting for the first call, which I think was a bin fire. But it's still like, and I remember you get that rush where it's the bell's going like, right, off we go. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you now, that has slowed a little bit. Still get excited, but I remember the first couple of times, like the level of adrenaline being dropped in your body was just, it was like you're about to jump out of a plane, of which I'd never done. But I imagine it was that same feeling of like, it's about to happen, anything could change. Yeah. Whereas now I get the opposite of that, because now I'm a junior officer and I've got sort of first level of management. You kind of, your brain goes in a different direction. It's like, right, I'm now responsible for other people on my crew, plus if I'm first in attendance and I'm the officer in charge, I'm now responsible for maybe 10, 20, 30 people. And that adds a layer of pressure and complexity, of which when I first joined the job, I was just happy to be there. Yeah. And now it's like, right, I need to make sure that every day, everyone's day is like that first day, where it's fun, it's exciting, there's something to do. But ultimately, you know you're going to go home at the end of that day. Yeah. So yeah, that's that's a whistle stop tour of the first day.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, and you said it's the best job in the world, and it's something that you were always going to do because of your dad. Are you glad that you never necessarily had that kind of teenage years where you were like, oh, I don't know what I want to do, or what do I want to do at uni, or anything like that? Are you glad you kind of had your...
Yeah, I think so, because it's quite interesting, because like my wife, when we met each other, we met at university. I was doing sports strength and conditioning, so basically I went to college, did sports science at college. When I turned 18, I looked to apply to join the fire service, but most brigades had put a freeze on recruitment because of austerity. So my dad said to me, look, you've got decent grades from your college, go to university. My sister had been to university. He's like, go to university, get a degree, because if you join the fire service, you'll need to hold some kind of higher academic qualification to be, if you want to go on to become an officer and progress your career. You don't have any barriers now. If you've got the chance, go and do it. Yeah. And he said also, you'll go and you'll grow up. And not that I needed to grow up, but it's more, he says, like, you need to go and have experiences, because when we sit the interview for the fire service at the time, and it kind of is still now, the kind of PQRA, so like, tell me a time when you've done this, tell me a time when you've done that. And some of the things, ultimately, at 18, I probably didn't have a good enough response to. Yeah. But going to university, sort of surviving, the first year.
Yeah.
Learn how to wash your stuff, shrink your clothes, fill in the blank, cook, just survive, meet new people.
Yeah.
And because you're going to university and everyone else there's so many people coming together, it's that melting pot of people. You meet people that I've met some absolute characters of which you just think I would have never have met you if I hadn't have gone there.
Yeah.
So basically went to university, got my degree, and all the time was thinking, right, at some point my time will come, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I remember my final year of university, I applied everywhere. I applied to London, Staffordshire, Merseyside, I applied to Scotland, and it's like whoever's going to take me, because it's almost like you might be the fittest, the most academic, fill in the blank, but if you don't get past the entry test, which some of them are quite difficult, and it's not even the physical side to it, it's just the behavioural judgment tests. Like at 19, 20, I was like, what? I don't know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And you kind of, it sounds daft, but you've almost got to learn the game of what they're after. And every brigade's different. And once you get past that stage, you think, I've done that stage, right? Next stage is like physicals, which is no qualms with that.
Yeah.
It's like playing rugby. I've been to the gym since I was like 16, so I was fine with that.
Yeah.
And then it's like once you pass them, now it's on to the interview, and it's having that interview. I needed to have that experience. So going to university, got all that, got into the job, and there was never a moment where I thought, I'm not going to join the fire service.
Yeah.
But then my wife, who I met at university, she was doing, her first degree was, I'm going to get it wrong, some sort of advertisement, editorial advertisement,
Okay.
but basically she was a retoucher.
Yeah.
So she made some incredible artwork, all kind of very visual, very sort of ICT. I sound old, ICT, but it's basically she wanted to go into animation or something like that. And I remember she was looking at jobs in London. Bearing in mind, an undergraduate job for me in strength and conditioning was like a volunteer for a year at said rugby club, football club, work every single day, and maybe get a grant that gives you £5,000, and that's it. Whereas for Zoe, her graduate job's like 50, 60 grand in London. That was like entry level.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, flip that, I'm gonna be a well-kept man here. If I don't get the fire service, she's gonna be raking it in. And fair play to her, she actually applied for the fire service same time as me. She got further than me the first time, which was heartbreaking. She got an interview, and she sat her interview, and they basically turned around and said, look, you've answered the questions really, really well if you were joining as a paramedic. And she's like, what? She's like, have you ever thought about being a paramedic? Because the way you've answered the questions, we think that a job for you in the ambulance service, you'd be better suited for that, and based on your values and how you spoke, than you would for the fire service. And so I never thought about that. And that kind of then made her look into that.
Yeah.
So I eventually got into the fire service. Zoe then got another degree as a paramedic, and then she spent 2 years at Coventry trying to be a paramedic, and she's done it ever since.
Oh, wow.
It was quite an interesting thing, you're saying, Andrew, about not knowing what to do. I think she wanted to be a teacher, and then she thought, I'm not too sure about that. Then she went to university to do the, because she's very creative, she's like phenomenal drawer, like painting, just incredible.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I'm not too sure about that either, because the kind of work area she was looking into was retouching and downsizing models. So, for example, you have a size 0 model, and she's been asked on the brief to make them look smaller for online advertisement, and she was like, this isn't right.
Yeah.
There's such a knock-on effect for younger generations. Like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
So for me, for when she met me, she's like, all you've wanted to be a firefighter, and that's it. That's even no other aspirations, which sounds kind of bad. She found it fascinating. And a lot of people, to be fair, they sort of asked me what I wanted to do, and I thought, this is it, it's all I wanted to do. And there is people like me, but I must admit there's probably not that many people. But I guess there's people that want to join the police or join the army, and that's all they've ever wanted to do. I don't know what else I would do. I probably would have joined the police.
Okay.
Or maybe the military. I think the military would have been my first option, then maybe the police, and then eventually probably try to get to the fire service. But I don't know what else I would have done. I really don't know. I couldn't have worked a normal job. I couldn't have worked in an office.
Yeah.
I just find it fascinating. I've got mates that do work in offices, and I just think, what do you do all day? Like, we do this, you have a meeting. It's like, let's have meetings. And don't get me wrong, like, our days sometimes aren't the most productive. If you looked at the fire service, if you try to run the fire service like a business, which they try to do to a certain extent, and I understand why, but we are the ultimate insurance policy. Like most people, they pay around £56 a year for the fire service, And with that, if your house catches fire, we'll turn up.
Yeah.
If your cat's stuck in a tree, we'll turn up. Fill in the blank, if anything happens, we turn up. And I think how much people pay more per month for
Coffee.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
And it's per year.
Yeah.
So in terms of the cost and what you get from it, there's no better job, I don't think, and there's no better thing to spend your money on. But yeah, in terms of actual productivity in day to day, we don't want to do that much.
Yeah.
But we're always prepared to do anything you want, Andrew.
Yeah.
We'll pretty much do it. The police won't do it, the ambulance won't do it. You'll call the fire service and we'll probably do it for you. Yeah, basically.
So just on that point then, kind of, you must have done some pretty amazing things. What's something about the job that people might not expect or understand from an outsider's perspective?
I think it's still it's interesting when people still call us the fire brigade, because I think there's only two official fire brigades left in the UK. One's London Fire Brigade and Cleveland Fire Brigade. The rest of us adopted Fire and Rescue Service.
Okay.
And I want to say that was either in the 70s or later on, and that's just basically to recognise the broadening role of what a firefighter is. Most of what we deal with is like emergency special service calls, and that's basically stuff not inside our kind of statutory core function. So putting fires out and rescuing from road traffic collisions are like our statutory responsibility.
Okay.
There's another category called basically other emergencies, which is special service calls, which is basically anything else other than fires and car crashes. So for in England, flood response kind of falls under that. So any water rescue, if you drive your car into flood water, spate flooding where riverbanks burst, anything like that is a special emergency which the fire service go and do. So we have specialist crews, the water rescue trains, and they'll go in and facilitate rescues. And most of the time that's kind of either in a boat, like an actual powered boat, or we've got inflatable crafts, which basically we can either pull along, as long as we can wade in the water, and we'll rescue people into the boats and we'll take them back to dry land. And I think a lot of people kind of don't realise that or don't recognise that actually that's the fire service doing that, because we don't wear anything saying fire for that. We're just wearing dry suits and we go in and we could be anybody else. But the big thing we kind of do more and more now is gaining access for other emergency services, normally the ambulance service. So we have like powers of entry. So legally, our kind of statutory responsibility, the Fire Service Rescue Act, this is going to be a bit boring, Andrew.
No, not at all. I asked, no.
We basically have powers of entry. So in terms of if there's a fire in this building now, legally, I could, if I was on duty, I could do any action to get inside here. So as long as I could justify it and it was practical in terms of how I was going to instigate a plan, I could smash any door, break any window, move any vehicle, as long as that was in the intention of putting out a fire or preventing escalation. But it also goes from people in emergencies, which is people in distress. So say example, you fell in your bathroom, your front door's locked, the ambulance service turn up, they can't legally break into your property. The police also, there's a kind of a little weird thing where they can't legally do that. That's why they have to get warrants. Whereas the fire service, we turn up and you say, by the way, Matt, there's somebody in there, they're believed to be in emergency or in distress, we just kick the door in. And that we're completely powered to do that. So more and more, we need a lot of more welfare checks with the ambulance service. So they'll get a call from an individual, and because obviously the stress on their system, on the NHS, it might be 3, 4, 5 hours after initial call. We then get a call from ambulance service, we turn up, we break the door. Admittedly, sometimes I knock on the door and the person opens the door, and you turn around and you're like, did you not try that? Did you not try that? Or twist the handle, like, oh, it's open, look. And in which case they can enter. But if it's locked and they can't get in, we turn up, break the door in. And with that, obviously, we 9 times out of 10 will go in and help the ambulance service, because most of the time, unfortunately, it's people that are in awkward states, where they've taken substances, where they have a history of mental health. And sometimes these individuals, they're unsafe for themselves and other people. So we often come in masses, whereas the ambulance service might be 1s or 2s. So we'll normally go in with them and just help kind of control that environment. And obviously with that, you then see and having to end up refer people to adult safeguarding, or it might be hoarders. Our roles develop so much now in terms of the protection and prevention of people, not just from fires, but themselves. And there's certain characteristics we know, from alcoholism or like drug abuse or hoarders or any kind of mental health issue. We know that statistically they're more likely to have a fire because they live in an altered state a lot of the time. So that's something that people don't realise we do a lot of. And like I said, sometimes that's direct engagement. So we go into the communities and we try to encourage people to have smoke alarms fitted, and we talk about fire safety in the home. But other times it's a part of our emergency response where we've just kicked someone's door in, and by the way, we're now going to talk to you about some fire safety, or we're going to try to instigate something to protect that person.
Instigate some sort of conversation to benefit.
Exactly that. And a lot of the time, it is people that it's the cry for help. And it might be the case that we can do something about it, or if we can't, because, like I said before, with a sort of big friendly emergency service, we have lots of partners we can refer to. So adult social care, depending on where you are geographically in the country, there's different services. And we basically feed into them because we get into so many properties, and because we're a trusted source. We can kind of convince sounds the wrong word, but we can talk to people on a level playing field. We've got no bias. We're not going to try to take you to hospital or convince you to speak about your partner that's abusing you to the police. We're not going to do that. We're just going to be a friendly face and say, look, we're concerned about this. I can't leave you in this situation. This is what I want to do, but in order for you to do this, I need you to give me permission to do it. And again, 9 times out of 10, it's a positive response, and we can do something for the person. So that's, like I said, it's not on. You don't see that on the TV programs like Chicago Fire's not showing you that, but that's the vast majority of our job is safeguarding people, looking after people.
Does that mean the training and stuff that you go through now is obviously not just about fighting fires? Do you go through kind of like mental health training to help others, or?
Yes and no. It's kind of a lot of what we do is kind of awareness in ourselves for crews. It's kind of acknowledging, seeing the signs where someone's in a position where, like I said before, they're an altered state. Part of our kind of our casualty care training, our sort of trauma training, a lot of what we do is the physical side to it, because if we turn up to a road traffic collision and someone's heavily bleeding, we need to know, right, a lot of our stuff is fast action, like how can I apply some triage, how can I prevent it worsening? I'll admit, in terms of the mental health side to it, particularly in the area that I work, we have a lot of people that try to commit suicide by jumping into rivers or into bodies of water. And a lot of the time we turn up, and because we haven't got any formal training kind of to be a negotiator or any kind of mental health sort of training to how best to speak to these people, we're kind of like stood by waiting. If they were to jump, we're going to basically jump in and rescue them from the water. And a lot of the time it's the police that come along. But again, depending on the individual, some of the police negotiators are incredible. And it makes you realise the difference between a standard police officer who's kind of like, right, get down, like a parental parent, get down, like come here. They kind of turn up, and they're just different, the different calibre of people. Like I said, unfortunately, I've been to quite a few incidents with people, and there's a group of people that have all been basically sectioned at the same time. They'll know each other because obviously they've been in an institution at the same time. And then once they're kind of allowed back into general population, obviously they stay friends because they've got similar sort of needs, similar experiences. The issue with that is that when one enters an altered state, they typically kind of mobilise the others to do the same. So you have one person that's decided today's the day, they'll send a message to the group of friends, and all of a sudden you've got 3-4 people that are in separate places that are trying to take their lives, and it's a really difficult situation when you have that, because there's only so much of us. And like I said, unfortunately, these people, for whatever reason it may be, they decide that they're going to take their lives in bodies of water, of which we have a limited response. So it is fascinating, but unfortunately, no, there's probably not. And I think it is something that's people become more aware of, because we are going to, like I said, more and more mental health jobs. But I think the vast majority of it is just trying to level with people, is trying to find some kind of common ground with them, trying to talk them down, de-escalate. And like I said, with us being the fire service and having no kind of bias, I think that works. And most people, I'd say all firefighters, they're all good people.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's outliers. I say that now. There's always going to be outliers,
Yeah, of
but the
course.
vast majority of people are kind-hearted. Even the most stoic, like stone-faced people that I know, I've gone to jobs and I've seen them either interact with children or people in awkward states or fill in the blank, and I'm like taken back thinking, I did not for a second think you possessed that level of emotional intelligence to be able to interact. But I think you kind of join the fire service because you want to look after people, and that's an innate thing in most people. So, you know, there's no formalised training, but I'd like to say most people would have a good go at it, and we'd find a way. Like most things, like impact, overcome, get on with it sort of thing. And that's what
go
we'd
and do
probably
the best for the situation.
Exactly that, that'd be it,
Oh, class, mate. All right, we'll take a little break there, and then we'll come back and talk about the realities of the role.
Happy days.
Right, so Matt, we've got to know you a little bit and your history with the fire and where you are now, but let's talk about the realities of the role.
Okay.
Firefighting is obviously really physically demanding, but how much of the job is mental, and how do you keep yourself grounded through stress and adrenaline of a stressful situation?
I think that the key thing is the fitter you are, the easier it is to keep a cool head.
Okay.
So like you said, it does get stressful, and it depends the situation you're in, and it depends how dynamic it is. If you go to a house fire and this person's reported or person's trapped, and you're the first pump in attendance and you're in the BA crew, you know you're going to be crossing that threshold first, and you're going to have to go and put a fire out and rescue people. So the level of adrenaline response that gets you is massive, but also it's not just that dump of adrenaline. If you're first pump in attendance, there's lots of tasks you've got to do. You've got to run the hose reel out, put your set on. There's all these different things, potentially break a door in, put a ladder up, that are all physically demanding things before you even got in the building, having to tolerate heat and or smoke and move to try and find the person and rescue them. So there's so many little key things, and the fitter you are, the easier it is to be in that moment, calm in your head and collected in what you're doing.
Yeah.
So we know that all of us know that the more tired you become, the easier it is to make a mistake and or hurt yourself.
Yeah.
And hurting yourself might mean hurting your oppo or hurting the people you're trying to rescue. So fitness is like a non-negotiable. You've got to be as physically fit as you can be. Yeah. And I always say, like, there's not you've got to do it for yourself, and by doing it for yourself and set yourself a high standard. And everyone's going to be different, you know, like what your high standard is, what is my high standard is always going to be different. Yeah. And obviously we have a set level of minimum expectation, but that's the minimum. Like we shouldn't be aiming for the minimum. No. So we should be pushing ourselves as far as we can and preparing yourselves for the role. So like I said, the physical fitness that we have definitely aids your mental clarity, because you can think, if you think, you go for a run and you're running flat out, and your flat out is somebody else's cruise. Yeah. If we all know, if you go for like a gentle jog and you're cruising along, you can have that conversation in your head, you're processing things, everything's happy door, isn't it?
Mental clarity.
Yeah. If I'm making you like Andrew, like, right, go flat out now, Andrew, and ask you all these questions, you're like, I can't. Yeah. There's the coordination of what I'm doing, the intensity. I can't have that conversation. Yeah. It's the exact same thing for us. So you need to be able to work at a high level and have clarity. So the physical fitness is key. I think then the mental strength comes depending on what the job is. So certain jobs, like I said, you're almost distracted by what you need to do. Like you have a task. If you go into a house fire and you've got to rescue some people, you know, that's bread and butter for us. We know what we need to do. Yeah. When it becomes more kind of technical rescue kind of jobs, sort of very difficult road over collisions or rope rescues or water rescues, or animal rescues where all of a sudden there's an element of severe danger. Yeah. And fires are dangerous, don't get me wrong, but fires go out. Yeah. You can't turn off gravity, you can't turn off water, depending on where you're obviously. Yeah. And animals are unpredictable. So they kind of add a different level where you need to stay calm and have the discipline in your head. And I think you develop that mental strength and fortitude partly through experience and partly speaking to other people. Yeah. And kind of not fake it till you make it, but we have to accept that when you join the fire service, join any job, you are going to be green. Yeah. And it's important to have other people around you that are more experienced, that are able to kind of keep you grounded and kind of teach you or show you how to act. Yeah. And I was quite fortunate when I first joined that I was surrounded by lots of very senior firefighters that they'd been in a job longer than they'd been alive. So they knew the job really, really well, and they'd either developed ways of dealing with incidents and how to think and how to focus. And one of the things I'm being told is that when you turn up to a job, like, you just do your job.
Okay.
So don't try to think about, oh, that looks painful. It says I'm going to get into a car crash. Oh, that's really painful. That's really whatever.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. What's your task, right? Your task is, I need you to take this door off, Andrew. Right? Okay. How do I take the door off? And you process through your head of what your task is and how you're going to achieve it. And by doing that, it distracts you away from potentially a not very pleasant scene or the screaming or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
We focus on what our role is and what we're going to do. And it's having the discipline to do that in very, very high stress situations that I think builds that mental strength, because you realise you can do it. I just need to do my job. That's all I'm here for. I need to serve my function, which is to put this fire out, to rescue this person from wherever it is. And by honing into that, this is my job, this is my task, it helps to instill that confidence and clarity in your own head.
Yeah.
And the rest of it's just experience.
Yeah.
It's just the more you do it, the more you realise you can do it.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I think I really struggled with when I first joined, is that you get out to these jobs, you're thinking, flipping out, this is going to be a bit... I remember going to... we got multiple calls for a house fire, which typically means it's on fire.
Okay.
Like, if you get sent to a job and it's like a house fire in the middle of town and there's only one call to it, you're sometimes a little bit dubious. Depending on the time of the day. If it's the middle of the night, then you take it normally as given. But if it's a Saturday afternoon in a terrace, row terrace houses, and you get one call, you're a little bit like, well, if it's really on fire, the whole street would be out. You'd have multiple calls. Yeah. I remember going to this job, there was multiple calls, and controller coming over to tell us that there's multiple calls. We've had 8, 10 calls for this now. There's reports of like 4 people in there, and all of a sudden it's like, holy mother of God, like this is real. Yeah. And I remember being sat there, and I'd probably been in about a year, and I remember looking across, and the bloke I was wearing with, he'd been in about 30 years, and he was like, right, young'un, stick with me. Nice. We're gonna do this. He like spoke me through what I already knew I needed to do, but because my brain was running at 1,000 miles an hour, him just having that grounding moment of, right, when we get there, you're going to get this, I'm going to get this, you're going to meet me at the back of the pump, we're going to get our brief, and then we're going to go in there, we're going to do whatever we're told to do. Are you happy with that? I'm like, yeah, I'm happy with that. And that instantly gave me that, right, this is my task, this is my focus.
It's almost like he gave you that checklist that you can normally go through
exactly
yourself.
Because you could probably see me, I was like, I was like a hamster stuck in a wheel, and they're like, what do I do? And then now being in a position now where, as a junior officer, I do that to people. Yeah. So if you get something come through and it looks a bit tasty, it looks like it's going to be a nasty artistry or a house fire, I turn around and say, right, I need you to get this form. When we get there, think about this, think about that. Yeah. I need to do this, I need to do that. And I think even the experienced firefighters, I think everyone will admit they want to know where they're at. We want communication, we want clarity. Right, Matt expects this of me. Right, when I get there, that's my role. And like, once you've done that, meet me here. Once you've done that, meet me here. And it just levels things out. And I think that focus on what you can do and what you need to do, and that helps bring that mental strength and that clarity. And the rest of it is just experience. Yeah, just doing it. And I don't know how else. I think we spoke before about kind of going to some of the more difficult jobs when someone's deceased or in a very precarious position. I think you've got to try and not decontextualise the situation, but the way I kind of look at people that are deceased is that what makes them that person. So what makes me who I am is that kind of spark of life, the essence, whatever you want to call it, the soul, whatever you want to say it is. Yeah. That's unique to every single person, and that's within that person. But the moment we pass, and I believe that part of you goes wherever it goes. I don't know. People got lots of different ideas and different faiths for that, but I believe that part goes, and what's left is just the vessel that you were, and that's so who you were. You're not that anymore, and you're not there. And that's not to say that they deserve any less respect, but there's nothing I can do that's ever going to bring or change or affect that person ever again. Yeah. So it's kind of like, right, it comes back to we have a job to do. And if that's to recover that body, is to recover that body in the most dignified, respectful way we can and treat that person, because at the end of the day, that is someone's loved one, and they deserve that respect. And it's kind of a little bit of, I'm not sure if honour's the right word for it or prideful thing, but it's kind of, you're kind of you're potentially the last people other than a funeral director that's going to handle someone's loved one.
Yeah.
And it's your responsibility to try to make that exit from their final resting point as, like I said, as dignified and respectful as possible. And I think that's how I look at things as well, is that to try to focus on the silver linings of that. It's quite interesting. I did a course, we spoke about earlier about mental health. We had a course put on by two mental health practitioners, and they were talking about PTSD and basically that PTSD happens where you've got alert, you're constantly elevated sort of stress response in your head, and that basically, you know, what should happen is you go to something traumatic, you're going to get this response because it's a traumatic thing, but then over time you should process it and kind of understand what's going on, however you do that, and you'll kind of return to a base level. But with PTSD and people that suffer from that is that they hit an elevated state, they never quite fully recover, and they're always above baseline.
Yeah.
And it's just a constant cycle of just an accumulation. They talk about that bucket, don't they? A bucket full of water, it becomes heavy over time. But interestingly, she said about, she said, oh, everyone's heard of PTSD. Have you ever heard of PTSD growth? And we're all sat around and we're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And she said, there's something they found in people that they go to these traumatic experiences, through that traumatic experience, they kind of have this positive growth where they get a realization about the concept of life, or how important family is, or important whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And they get this, instead of getting PTSD and staying in this altered state, they drop below baseline. They have like a greater meaning and greater satisfaction, or whatever it may be. But they don't, there's kind of no real negative connotation around the experience they've had.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because my great uncle, he was a C4 Highlander in the army, and he was a Leicester City policeman. And I remember him saying, I remember talking to him in my sister's 21st birthday. I remember talking to him, and I was like, you know, do you have any regrets in life? Or because he was my granddad's brother. My granddad passed away when I was quite young, so I felt as if I kind of lost out on maybe that kind of granddad, grandson kind of conversation about the way the world is and how things are, and just trying to get a better understanding of things. Because obviously when I was at 18 at university, I'm trying to figure things out. I just wanted, I'm not sure the word parental guidance, but you know, you just want some reassurance that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And my parents gave me that, but then you think, well, my parents love me to pieces. They're probably, maybe they're going to have a biased view, or maybe they're jaded because I'm their son.
Yeah.
And not to say your grandparents wouldn't be the same, but I just felt as if you'd probably get a different
perspective, isn't it?
Exactly that. So we sat talking to him, and he said he had no regrets, and he had horrific COPD. Like, that man smoked like a train for years. But he had no regrets. He said, I don't regret one cigarette, I don't regret anything in my life, because that made me who I am. But them experiences, him getting COPD, he then did like in his 60s, he used to go to the gym every single day, and because his lung function was becoming so bad, he'd just go on a bike and pedal, or he'd go on a row machine and row. And the Leicester Mercury made a newspaper article about him, because he was, when he used to go to the gym, he used to say he was on this world voyage, where basically it's like, I'm cycling from Leicester today to Calais, and that's X number of miles, and then I've got to cycle the distance that the boat goes from Calais to Dover, from Dover to Calais. Then from Calais, he'd go to Paris, and he did a world tour basically, just going to the gym. And that was his mindset, is that I've got this rough diagnosis, my lung function's deteriorating, but actually the positive it is, I'm gonna go to the gym and meet people and have this, just basically be this motivational force. And I was sitting there thinking, he said to me, no matter how bad situations become, how dire things are, you've got to try and find silver linings. Yeah. And I said, no matter what it is, there'll always be one. I said, my task to you in your life is to find them linings and hold on to them. And it's quite interesting, this lady saying about this PTSD growth. It's basically the exact same thing. And it's that you go to these traumatic situations, and I do admit, like, you know, I've gone to some fatal incidents, and I've gone home and I see Zoe, and I'm like, I love you to pieces. Yeah. And it makes you so much more appreciative of what you've got, and that kind of grounds you. And for me personally, that's helped with the kind of mental health side of things, because it's made me so appreciative of what I have got. Yeah. And having things like 2 legs and 2 arms, and then walk around and run. Like, we had a conversation about you trying to do triathlons, like just being able to do that. Yeah. I get these things where, like, I'm walking around and thinking, I'm walking around. Like, I'm so much, like, how many people out there that either no longer can or never could or fill in the blank would love just to be able to walk down some stairs and go outside. And I think that's how I kind of keep myself grounded and keep my health, my mental health, in good state. And that's probably why I do the challenges. Why not? Like, there's going to come a time where I can't do it anymore. Yeah. And I'd hate to turn around and be like, oh, I probably could have done something when I was in my 20s. Yeah. But I didn't. So that's how I kind of contextualise and look at kind of nasty situations and try to make them as a positive experience as possible. Yeah. And don't worry, in the moment, it's pretty hard. Yeah. And it takes quite a bit of mental fortitude to do some of the things, but at the same time, that's the job. Yeah. Like, and that's not to be like, oh, stiff up a lip, get on with it. It's that you are, if you join the fire service or any service, you are the fortunate few that get to wear the badge, perform the role, do something so many people do. Yeah. And we have to understand that part of that job is doing some things that are pretty rough. Yeah. But I always say to myself, if I don't do it, who will? Yeah. And I'd rather me shoulder that burden than somebody else, because I know that through past experience that I can do that. Yeah. And maybe one day that I might break, but for the time being,
you can do it.
That's what I'll do. And that's how I kind of deal with it.
Yeah. The mental side of it must be massive now, especially kind of with everything we've spoken about, especially about the kind of PTSD side of it. Yeah. But that growth thing is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, like I said, it was revolutionary. It kind of, like the silver lining thing is what I'd known for years since my uncle said it to me. But then when she said it, I was like, well, that's what I've been doing all this time. Yeah. And hadn't really realised.
Just didn't know what it was or what it was called.
Exactly that. I didn't know it at all. And for it to be kind of a clinical thing, I was like, actually, that does make sense. Yeah. And it's quite interesting to see other people around the sort of in the working group. There's some people that just me knowing their personalities, they catastrophize certain things, and they found it such a strange concept. They just couldn't almost grasp that you could get this positive out of something so bad. And you look around other people and you think actually they were on the same wavelength. They understood it. They knew exactly what it was. Yeah. And I guess it is just a switch in your state and in your perception of things. Yeah. You know, where you're pessimistic, optimistic, is it half full or half empty? I think that's kind of the way of looking at it. Mm-hmm. And like I said, the experience is only either depending on, obviously, I think mentorship of who you're around as well, and how they react to incidents. Like the crew and how we respond is so important. Yeah. Like panic is contagious. If someone panics, everyone tends to panic, whereas calm is contagious. If you turn up and you're calm and everyone's, not professional, the wrong word for it, but everyone's calm, everyone's disciplined, they know what the job is, that's half the battle. Yeah. And even if it's like that swan analogy where graceful on top and absolutely pedaling like underneath the water, it's that mindset that just looking the part and feeling, you might not look the part, you might not feel the part, but just having that, a firefighter turn up and them seem very calm and sort of competent, you don't know how much that affects other people, particularly when it's their worst day of their life. And you're there thinking, flipping out, what am I going to do? Yeah. But just by, all right, just trying to talk them through in a calm way. Your brain's going, what do I do now? Yeah. How do I deal with this? But the rest of you has to say, like, you're in a good set of hands here. Like, I will look after you. And I said, just experience and time builds that. Yeah. And I by no means mastered it. Yeah. But I really have seen some firefighters and some officers that have absolutely nailed it. Yeah. And it's such an incredible thing to watch when people just have this sort of emotional intelligence and empathy to kind of level with people. It's fascinating to watch. Yeah. It really is.
It's great that you've talked about kind of other people as well, because camaraderie must be a huge part in the emergency services. Can you talk a bit about the relationships you build with like your crew, especially when you were a junior and you had people to look up to, and now that you're in a position for people to look up to?
Yeah, I must admit, it's pretty easy when you're the junior firefighter and you're the kind of probie on the watch, because you're so green, everything's new. And you just, for me personally, I was a sponge. I just wanted to learn, I wanted to know as much as I could. And a lot of the stuff, I guess, at that point as well, I mean, I was like 20, 21. I was still young in terms of actual age, and you're kind of in a situation where there's people twice my age needing help, and you're kind of having to offer solutions of which I've pretty limited life experience. And you're going to try and give this advice to people. So you learn quite early to not fake it till you make it, but you're going to be put in situations where the expectation of you from the public is that you are
an expert.
Yeah, you've been in 1 year, but you've got 30 years of experience. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of the way it's going to be. And I think I was fortunate enough that the people I worked with, they instilled enough confidence in me, and they taught me well enough. Because for them, it was like they need to pass on their legacy almost. They need to pass on the information they've learned. And there's nothing better if you. There's nothing better if you can't experience something. The next best thing is someone telling you about that experience. So if I was going to go skydiving and say to you, Andrew, it's fantastic. When you get up there, it feels like this, this, and this. You may have never done that, but if you don't go to do it, oh, Matt said when I get up, you might feel like this. It might look like this, and that comforts you because you've already heard that experience, and it kind of is a leveler. So a lot of the camaraderie is taking the mickey out of people, and being the probationer, being young. I'll tell a story now that for my first ever watch. I used to eat eggs every single day for breakfast, right? And they went through a stage. It wasn't until I actually transferred away from that watch to a different service that they told me what they're doing. For years, I thought I was getting barren eggs. So I'm getting eggs with nothing in it, empty. I'm thinking, this is really fucking weird. But the best thing about it is that if I bought these eggs from Lidl, they wouldn't blow the egg. If I bought it from Aldi, they'd blow the egg. So this is how much finesse there is. So basically what they're doing is they're piercing a little hole in the egg and physically blowing the yolk and the white out of the egg and then putting the egg back in the carton. I'd go in the gym in the morning, I'd come out and we're having breakfast. We've done a parade, we've done checks, we're having breakfast. I'm like, go to pick up the egg. I'm like, it's weightless. I'm like, crack it. It's like, there's no yolk in it. And a guy called Johnny, he'd be like, oh mate, dude, like you've got them eggs again. Where'd you buy them from? I was like, they're from Howdy Johnny. He's like, oh mate, my mum had that last week. Blah, blah, blah. I was like, it's really weird. Fast forward like 4 years, they've been doing it for months,
and
mate.
And you never clocked up?
Mate, they thought I knew. And I just thought, because literally, I just didn't care. I was like, oh, that's an odd thing. Just kept going. And they said to me, like, you do realise for the last like 4 years we've been blowing your eggs? I was like, I've absolutely no idea. So it's little things like that. And we just, my first watch, we just constantly take the mick out of people, and you'd find yourself either in the barrel or carrying the barrel. But the key thing is that you're trying to. People talk about banter and things being inappropriate and stuff. None of it was ever inappropriate because the people didn't find it inappropriate.
Yeah.
If somebody else heard some of it, they probably would.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think the important thing is we spoke about topics that were probably uncomfortable, and everyone felt uncomfortable. But by addressing it and talking about it, you got a shared sense of comfort and trust, because you think, actually, I'm not sure about this situation or how to address something. Mm-hmm. You speak to your watch, which in theory, they should be kind of like a second family to you. We spend so much time together. Yeah. You spend upwards of 40 hours a week together. And how many other people do you spend that much time with other than your partners or children? It's a very rare, sort of unique situation. Yeah. Thrown in the mix that some of the stressful incidents you go to, admittedly sometimes funny incidents you go to, because some of them you wouldn't believe how wild some of these things are, and not in terms of like people getting hurt, just really strange calls, like people getting things stuck in places that you wouldn't expect, getting called to A&E, getting cut, said things off people as well. You just think, what? It's just really wild, weird things, and you kind of have all the experiences together, and just going through that, enduring it together, there is a sense of camaraderie that is like nothing else. You can't replace that. You can't replace the time spent with people and having them laughs. And I think the fire service is a great leveler, because one day you might be king, pulling all the blows, and the next day something happens, you might fall over a mop, fill in the blank, and you are bottom of the barrel. Yeah. And as long as everyone's taking it in good jest, it is good fun. And like I said, most people I've worked with, they get that. Yeah. And I spent days just laughing. And that's what I'm saying, it's the best job in the world. Yeah. With the right people, the right attitude, the right culture. And don't get me wrong, that's not to say that all the time we were jesters and joking. Yeah. It's about knowing when, like the military call it the kill switch, don't they? Where you need to know when it's time to relax and time to go. And it's the same for the fire service. When the bells go off, it's time to, we're going to work. Someone's called us to work, so now we switch on and we're professional. Yeah. When we come back to station, it's like being around a bunch of 14-year-old kids. But that's how it needs to be.
Yeah.
You need to have a balance. You know, if we were constantly on it all day, it's draining.
Yeah.
And that's for most people at any job. Like if you're I'll say professional, that's probably the wrong word for it again. But if you're on it 100% all day, you get home and think, flipping out, that was a long day.
Yeah.
Whereas we have kind of peaks and troughs of like professionalism, turn up, deal with an incident, resolve it, happy days, come away, mess around like kids for a little bit, have a joke, have a laugh, incident, come away. And that's kind of how you build that camaraderie. And it's trust. It ultimately is trust. You have to be able to trust the people you work with. And you can't buy trust. Trust is earned. And that builds that builds that camaraderie. It builds the morale. And I think that because the traditions of the fire service are such a way that it's expected that you will look after your watch, you will look after the people you work with. People already have that ideology that I'm going to join a team, a high functioning, performing team, and the part of that is we need to get on, we need to trust each other. And I think the times in which I've seen that go south or go badly is because there might be certain individuals in that team that are not bought into the values and the ethos of what it means to be a team player. They may be very individualistic, or they're very selfish, and ultimately it doesn't work. When you have to work with 4 other people, sometimes 5 other people, you need to be able to work. You need to compromise as well. Like, you know, the day's not going to go the way you want it to all the time. You might miss the gym time, you might miss lunch breaks, you might miss filling the blank because operational readiness is what we're here to do. But it's about being able to take all that in your stride and have a joke with it, really. And not take the parts we can take. There's certain parts of the job we have to take seriously, some parts we don't. And the parts we don't have to take is don't take them seriously. And just get on with it. And I think that's how you build that culture. And you've got to come to it to have a laugh. You really have to. Like I said, and there has been some very funny times.
Okay, so it's like a little family, really, isn't it? Like
It is.
Like you said, you spend 40 hours a week with them. Some people don't spend that much time with their families. So
exactly that. And for some people, they might not have a significant other. So members of the watch, I'm not going to say replace that, but they become the agony aunt. They become that, you know, people they can turn to in a difficult situation. And because the fire service typically has got such diverse people in it, you might have people that previously worked in healthcare, might have been a social worker, might have been a tradie, whatever it is. You can turn to pretty much anyone in a fire station, and I guarantee everyone there's got a different skill set of some description. We're all firefighters, but typically we have
different life experience.
Exactly that. And it may be, for example, you know, people that are expectant parents, or they're trying to fall pregnant, or fill in the blank. And there's people, there's mothers and there's fathers, and they can all just give you so much, a wealth of experience and knowledge and help that I think maybe other industries probably have the same. And I'm probably a bit jaded because I've only really worked in the fire service, but I do think it's a different type of culture and care, because people do genuinely care. Like people have a problem and it changes shift, you know, different washes coming on, and someone's got a car problem, I guarantee there'd be 4 or 5 people
trying to fix the car.
Or offering solutions, or one of my mates, for example, with childcare, his station was at the station commander, his wife was a nurse, and sometimes depending on their shift change, she'd have to drop the kids off at the station, and his station commander, who was an awesome bloke who's now retired, he used to look after his kids for half an hour. And there's no, you know, if you went down the policy of what's meant to be done, shouldn't be doing that because X, Y, and Z. But morally, what's the right thing to do?
The human side of it all.
Exactly that, and that's what the sort of fire service foundation is based on. Is what's the morality of the situation? What's the right thing to do? And that's typically what we tend to do. And again, maybe other industries and companies have that, but I think that's what separates us from other things, is that we are a big family, and people with the right mindsets come together and look after everybody, and not just that firefighter, it's that firefighter's family and their children, and it's incredible to hear and see. And that, I imagine, up and down the country, there's similar stories to that. Which is just, that helps again build that trust, that camaraderie, that sort of faith in there's people out there that you work for and work under that will look after you, as we do to other people when they need help.
And that just builds the culture of like, now you want to look after the ones coming in, and
Exactly
it's a
that.
cycle.
Yeah, exactly that. And that's the thing. I always say, like, if you've experienced the positives of it, you need to take the positives and repeat that forward. If you've experienced the negatives, unfortunately, I'm not saying the fire service is all sunshines and rainbows. There's not. Historically, there has been people that have been employed by the organisation, like lots of organisations, that have been bad apples, and unfortunately they've got themselves into a position where they can influence or change things in a negative way, or impact people in a negative way. I'd be lying to say that has not happened in the fire service. But the key thing is, what I find interesting is that you'll hear stories of people that abuse, probably the wrong word, but have been mistreated, and it's like that fork in the road scenario, isn't it, where you've been mistreated, you can decide that I've been mistreated, I didn't deserve it, but if I got given it, I'm going to give it to somebody else.
Yeah.
And they go down that route of like, well, it happened to me, I'm allowed to do it to you.
Yeah.
Or you get the person that's like, I was mistreated, I know how bad that felt,
Yeah.
I'll never ever let anyone feel like that, and they split
break the cycle.
Exactly that. And I think a lot of, I cannot say for a second I was mistreated in the fire service. I've not. I've been very fortunate, the people I've worked with and worked for. But you hear stories of other people, and you think that you hear it, and like it comes back to that experience of I've heard that, and you hear them talk about what they've lived through, and you think I will never ever ever allow that to be a thing.
Yeah.
And that is now being a sort of junior officer is even more instilled in my head, is that the priority is looking after people and having people feel happy and being safe. And a part of being safe is being operationally ready, and a part of that is being physically fit, having that a safe space sort of in terms of the mental health where people can speak and be confident. And that circles back to the culture. If you trust people and you feel in an environment in which they want the best for you, you can open up, you can be who you truly are. And I want to say the watches that I've been in charge of, or at least been in the charge of people's care, is that I've brought that ethos and philosophy that we look after each other. I remember that my first watch manager said to me, he goes to me, loose lips sink ships. I'm there thinking, what does that mean? He was an ex Royal Marine as well. I was thinking, is that a naval reference? And he basically says, he said to me, look, like I said, we're a family. We spend so much time together. Families fall out, families fight. He said, but if you go and tell other people the inner workings or the gossip or of somebody else's life, you break the circle of trust. When the circle of trust is broken, it's very hard to rebuild. And it's basically like, if you have a problem with someone on this watch, you come to me or you go to them. And it's dare it be a day where you feel you can't do that and you have to go above us to resolve it, then fair enough, because that means that I've not done my job properly, I've not looked after you, and I've not built a good environment. And since then, that's the exact speech that I've given to other people, because I believe in it. I truly believe in it, is that loose lips sink ships. We have to look after each other, and we will fall out, we'll have disagreements, but the moment we go and badmouth each other to other watchers, other people, gossip, make rumours, it just erodes that trust and it collapses. So that comes back to, again, being a junior, thinking, what's this bloke talking about? And now being a junior officer, I'm like, I get it. It makes sense. And then being a firefighter coming up and working on watches and realising actually, when you see other watches that don't function well, it's because they don't get on because they don't trust each other. Because there might be somebody in there that's had disagreements in the past. But again, fortunately, the watches I've worked on, everyone's got on. And the difference is night and day. It really is. And it becomes a joy to be at work.
Good.
Yeah.
Class. Right, we'll have another break and then we'll come back and have a chat about your firefighter challenge.
Okay, perfect.
Right, mate, let's talk about the firefighter challenge. Last year you absolutely smashed it, record time, won the whole thing. What drives you to compete and how do you train for something like that? Well, firstly, tell us a little bit more about what it is.
So the British Firefighter Challenge is a challenge, obviously. It's a set course that involves a stair climb, a hauling element, a stair descent, a forcible entry, which is basically a little rig where you use a little hammer, you smash this forcible entry unit, and you need to apply so much force to basically move a piston. And that's simulators breaking into a building. There's a hose advancement, which is advancing uncharged hose, so hose with no water. There's a hose makeup element, which is the hardest part, because being 6'3", nearly 6'4", bending over is not easy, and it's compressing your lungs. So there's hose makeup. Then there's a barrel carrier, which basically is similar to carrying foam barrels. 4 lots of them. And the last element's a hose drag. It's a casualty drag, which is 50 metres carrying 70 kilo casualty. And essentially, it was set up initially to promote fire service fitness in the UK. So there's something called FireFit, which is a Canadian and a sort of German European model, and it's very similar to what we do, but that's been going since like, the 1970s. And then before that, there's like the Toughest Firefighter Alive. So there's all these competitions which, for years, have been kind of events where firefighters would compete in, and the idea is that if they're competing in this and the best there is, they're very fit people, and by being as fit as they can be, will actually that massively positively affects their actual employment as being a firefighter. So I think it was about 10 years, I want to say 2016 was the first ever British firefighter, it was in 2015, and it's set up by basically a committee of firefighters from different fire services in the UK. They'd all gone to these FireFit competitions in Europe, and so actually we'd like to do some in the UK that's more accessible for people, and the premise of it is to promote fitness. And it'd be incredible that there's some people that come, it might be their first time, both male and female, it's the exact same course, there's no kind of special treatment for either gender, it's the exact same course, there's race in their own categories, so male and female. And you'd be amazed how the culture of it is that you could be like me and set a course record and be fortunate enough to be able to do that, or you could be someone that's only just, because there's a 6-minute cut-off point, and you can be a person who's only just managed to finish in 6 minutes. And I guarantee the person who's doing it in just 6 minutes gets the more of a cheer than me, and rightly so, because it's about encouraging everybody to be as fit as they can be. And I think that's the ethos and the culture it's building. And we see each year on year, it sells out in hours. We're talking there's like 300 spots, and it might sell out in 2 hours, 3 hours. And same as the Welsh Fight Challenge, I think that this year sold out in 20 minutes. So it's just the sort of the expedium of the sort of people wanting to get involved is just growing and growing and growing. And that's gone by people that have been brave enough to step forward, the first ones from their brigade maybe, to step forward and get involved. And people realise that by doing so, it's that camaraderie. You meet people that are like-minded, that want to put themselves in tough situations, want to train hard, take their jobs potentially more seriously, or have a greater call into the job, is probably the best way to put it. And you find yourself surrounded by them types of person. So for me, my first one I did was in 2019 in Watford, and I basically stopped. I played rugby since I was a teenager. Went to university, played rugby at college. I played like county level. I played to a fairly decent standard, and basically when I joined the fire service, that was it. And I stopped because I was thinking, right, if I hurt myself now during your probationary period, I could be sacked for, well, failure to complete my competency, basically, not being able to be capable of fulfilling my role. So my dad said to me, like, you'd have a real conversation with yourself now. You know, the rugby was great, and you've had some great experiences, met some great people, but that's not, you know, I was never going to make a living from, if that makes sense. Whereas this is now your dream job. This is where you're going to make a living. And it was quite an easy cut thing. I kind of stepped away from rugby with no real regrets. Kind of did what I wanted out of it. And then I needed him to replace that kind of
competitive
edge. Exactly that. And I missed it. For the first year when I started playing rugby, I really missed it. Because I played rugby twice a week for years. So to not play any, and to not be around people, practicing, like the skill-based kind of stuff, the technical stuff, I really struggled with. And I saw the Firefight Challenge, and I thought, I'll give that a go. And the first year I went and did it in Watford. I think I did like 3 minutes, 11 seconds. And was absolutely gassed. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And from there on in, I was like, I could probably get good at this. I could probably, if I applied myself the same way I applied myself with rugby and the gym, I could probably get good at this. And then the COVID years came, and that kind of kiboshed it. But in terms of, for me physically, I'd gone from playing rugby and like playing back row and second row and weighing like 18 stone to being in the fire service and being that heavy was completely irrelevant. Like it just made things worse.
Yeah,
like
made things harder.
Everything's harder. Like I still fit enough to pass the test and do all that.
Yeah.
But in terms of a physical like effectiveness and efficiency point of view, I was just way too heavy. And like wearing our breathing apparatus set, it's because there's only so much air in that set compressed. If you're heavier and you're bigger, you need more air per breath, or you can consume so much more oxygen than most people. I was sinking sets in like twice the time of other people, and you couldn't say it was down to levels of fitness, but it was 100% down to the levels of mass. I had more mass than anybody else. So during COVID, I dropped like 10 kilos. I just thought, right, okay, it's time to come back to kind of a more athletic, sensible weight, really. So dropped loads of weight, and that kind of then propelled me for the next challenge when the world reopened, which was in Morton. Came second for my age category, and I think I did like a 2-minute 40. So I dropped about 30 seconds. And again, I was like, right, okay, I've dropped that without really, at that point, I wasn't really doing any technical stuff for it.
Yeah.
I was just getting fitter and just basically turning up and just going like 100% balls to the wall and just doing whatever I could.
Yeah.
And then after Morton, I think it was Hull, and I was on for a really good time, and I got loads of penalties because I didn't have enough finesse.
Yeah.
But there we won the men's, we came third in the men's relay, and we beat Gibraltar.
Okay.
And the video footage of that is fantastic. We were so far behind Gibraltar. The bloke, I was the last element, which is the casualty drag. And the bloke I was racing against, he basically thought we were like dead and buried. So he like pretty much walked up to the casualty. And Bobby, who's the element before me, phenomenally fast at rolling up hose, like just ridiculous. And he managed to get to me just before, this gentleman was probably halfway. And I managed to sprint up to him, get level with him at the casualty, and on the way back, I managed to take the win from him. So we came third. I think we came second for fire services, and maybe third overall, or fill in the blank. But either way, that was our kind of first sense of success as a team, and kind of getting on the podium. And then just went from there. And Manchester came, again, trains, race against a guy called Jack Baker, who'd won it for the last 2 years. Dude's really fit, really fast bloke. And I fell at the line. So I was literally, it was a fantastic race. It was the best one I've ever had. We were like level pegging the entire time, and literally just come down to the final bit. I just took a little tumble. But hey, it is what it is.
It is what it is, yeah.
And fair play to Jack, he took a tumble one of the following years, and straight away he like messaged me saying like, mate, I know exactly what it feels like, which was ace. And that kind of comes back to that culture and the camaraderie. Like he was straight on it. Like he wasn't trying to goad or like, oh, if you were better. It wasn't like that at all. It was very humble, which is again how the fire service and how people should be, which was great. And I had a chance to go to Saudi Arabia and do the toughest firefight alive. What I didn't tell any people, the person that asked me to go do it at the time, is that at Christmas time that year, this was just 2024, I basically couldn't walk. I had like a back injury.
Oh, no.
I'd never really been injured, but never really probably, since playing rugby, had probably lots of little injuries that I never kind of dealt with.
Big enough to be an issue.
Yeah, just kind of just glossed over them. A little bit of discomfort, I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
And I don't know what triggered it, but I remember around New Year's, I said to my wife, so like, something ain't right, like I just don't feel quite myself. Just like as in my back, I just felt really weak. And I remember one day I woke up and literally I couldn't get out of bed. Put my socks on, couldn't do anything. And I thought I'd herniated a disc in my back or slipped a disc. And I remember I got Zola to drop me off at work, and I stretched for an hour and a half before I started my shift. And thankfully for my 2 days, I was teaching a high-ab crane instructor's course. Sorry, I was this instructor on a high-ab course. I wasn't operationally on the run as such. And I remember going to the physio on the Friday night, and I thought, she's going to tell me that I've done some real bad damage to myself, and I'll be off the run, I'll be off sick, and then I'm like already catastrophising where I'm going to be. And she does these assessments on me. She's like, well, there's nothing wrong with you structurally. There's nothing wrong with you. Your spine's fine. Everything's fine. She's like, but you are the tightest man I've ever met. She's like, you're the Tin Man. She's like, you are. There's literally, you should have X number of range of motion in the hip. You've not got that. You've not got this. Not got that. And she's like, you just need to learn to stretch. And I was like, big relief. Right, okay. I remember she like put me in these positions and massaged me, and I've never been in so much discomfort in my life. And that kind of was that kind of sort of moment of realization that actually I'm not getting any younger.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I'm still not old, but I remember people saying to me, "Oh, when you get in your 30s, you get in your 40s, you'll feel X, Y, and Z." Well, I was like, at the point, I was like a 26-year-old stuck in like a 40-year-old body because I just couldn't function.
Yeah.
So that kind of started working through that, and then obviously got the invite to Saudi Arabia. And I'll be honest with you, I probably wasn't in any good state to do it, but I just soldiered on, and when I did it,
Yeah.
I came 23rd out of I think 200.
Okay.
It was all right, but
Yeah.
in my head, I never thought I was going to win it.
Yeah.
But you had to get into the top 18 to basically go to qualify for the finals. And rightly or wrongly, I thought, oh, I could probably be there.
Yeah.
I wasn't at all.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't move well enough. But I came back, and that was kind of the catalyst for me to push on for that year's British Firefighter Challenge, which I won. And I basically said to one of my best mates, Kush, I said, like, we're training now every single week, once a week, no excuses.
Yeah.
And then we kind of just doubled down on that kind of pledge to do it. And come rain, come shine, like we had some training sessions where it was like torrential, horizontal rain.
Yeah.
And we're like, we're doing it.
We're doing it.
And that kind of fortified the mindset. And Kush is older than me, and he's a lot more experienced in life, full stop. And talking about sort of mental aspects to things, he used to do powerlifting. I remember saying to me, he had this coach where the first ever competition he did, he said, I was real nervous. Well, I think, oh, can I do this, can I do that? And his coach said to him, look, you spent the last year or years deadlifting, squatting, benching. You can do all that. So technically you're sound. You know you're strong because we've done we've done the training. We know what you can lift. He said, so all of it's done. He said, you can imagine that like a tape recording. You've recorded all them lifts, all them hours in the gym. It's all done. It's all on paper, all on cassette, all on tape, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
He said, you've come to the competition now. All you need to do is press play.
Yeah.
And just go through the motions. And we spoke about it, and it's the first time I've never really done any kind of like sort of the mental side to sports. I've obviously studied it, been at university, but never really I just turned up and got on with it sort of thing. But it's the first time kind of visualization and thinking about things that I've done. And that massively helped with the training. Yeah. Because it's something like we've said before, like when you train in such a way that we do, it is flat out the entire time. Yeah. And your body wants to say, your brain's basically saying stop. Yeah. Because your heart rate's like 190 and you're like, everything's shutting down. I remember some sessions where I knew I was in trouble because I was getting like peripheral shutdown. Like my arms were heavy. Yeah. Because there's so much lactate and acid going on everywhere. This accumulative effect of just pushing myself. Yeah. And I'm like running through the casualty drag, and all I'm thinking is, all I need to do is get my arms underneath this casualty and hold them there for another 15, 20 seconds, and like this pain's over. Yeah. And it loops back to kind of the experience of doing tough things. It gives you the confidence that you can do tough things. Yeah. And some of those training sessions, Andrew, like we did, were horrific. Yeah. We had this thing called the lactic bath, which was basically, we'd run out, we'd have 50 metres, we basically set up a 50 metre area in full kit and BA set. We'd run out 50 metres, pick a length of the hose, run back. We then drag a casualty, which we weighted, the heaviest we got it to was about 95 kilos, and we dragged that 100 metres, so 50 metres there, 50 metres back. And then we'd have a loaded hose pack, which is probably, I mean, the tyres like resistance anyway, and we'd put a 20 kilo plate in there for good measure, and we'd run that 100 metres back. And then we'd run something else, and you'd be running for about 4 or 5 minutes, and you would literally...
Full sprint, 4 or 5 minutes, you just...
I mean, sprint's a strong word, but you'd have nothing left, and your legs would be in pieces, and it'd be so unbelievably uncomfortable. But again, it's that building. Yeah. You realise that you can do it, and because with a sort of sports science background, I think you need to record your numbers, how fast you're moving, how whatever it is in the gym. Yeah. You need to have some context of where you're at a baseline. Mm-hmm. So I've got training records for me and Kush for the last like 2 years of how fast we've done certain things, whether it's running stairs, whether it's hauling something. Yeah. And that gave you a real clear line of like, right, we're being competitive now of ourselves, each other as well, but also ourselves. Mm-hmm. And we could see, as the year was going on, months going on, getting towards the British, I could see that I was like dropping time. And same as Kush, dropping time. And it just, yeah, the camaraderie-ship of having Kush there and pushing through. I really believe if me and Kush hadn't have trained the way we did, I probably wouldn't have won it. Yeah. And I needed to have that experience to go to Saudi Arabia. I needed to have that experience with Jack in Manchester of almost being there. I need to have all them experiences to push me on.
Push you past that line.
Yeah, because you need that. You need that exposure, that uncomfortableness, because there's no good feeling. Like people were saying, "Oh, you'll win this, you'll win that," and it's like no good people saying that.
Yeah.
You actually have to be able to do the thing.
100%.
And that's the way I kind of look at things. Like all being well, saying you should do this, should do that, but unless I can do it, it's not worth anything.
Yeah.
So that comes back to that kind of camaraderie. Is that if it wasn't for Cush, probably wouldn't be able to push through it and do it, because you just need to have that competitive edge.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of been sort of my saving grace in some respects. It's something I can be the fire service challenge, something I can be competitive in. It's something that thankfully I've been quite successful in.
Yeah.
But it's quite interesting. There's another lad we compete with called Simon, and he kept saying to me, "Gosh, I'd love to come and train with you guys, mate. Come along." So we invited him to a session, and we had this. It was a real beastie session. We did like 250 meter sprints on the rower, and at the end, Simon was like, "Do you always train like this?" And we're like, "Yeah." And he's like, because a lot of people that compete, they record what they do and they post it online, and I'm not knocking that at all.
Yeah.
But me and Cush don't do that. Everything we do is like pain in silence, pain behind. No one even knows what it is.
Yeah.
And we kind of have the ethos that we'll like suffer in silence, and we'll turn up, and what the actions of what we do shows what we're about and what we've done. I remember Simon saying, like, if you guys do this every single week, I don't know how I can do this.
Yeah.
But again, it comes back down to we've spent so long doing this now, that's our normal.
Yeah.
And that's to say for people that come and do the challenge for the first time, is that like come along and do the best that you can do.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter you're not the fastest or you're the slowest. It doesn't matter. You just think of it as like this is your baseline.
Yeah.
You're going to turn up. Maybe you've trained a little bit. Maybe you've not. Whatever it is, come and have a go. See what it's about. And so many people do it for the first time, and they're hooked.
Yeah.
Like our mate Josh Bence. I remember saying to him, like, "Mate, come and do it." He's like, "Dude, I'm like 40." I was like, "Yeah, but you're a Marine. You've done triathlons." He's like, "Yeah, but I'm 40 years old." I'm like, "Just get involved."
Yeah.
And after his first one, he was like looking at buying some like Gucci boots, like because he bought into it. He's like, I realised. It's like, mate, I get it now.
Yeah.
And ever since then, like all the challenges he's been to, because it's just something about it. It's the competitiveness, the camaraderie, and like I said, you're meeting people that are passionate about the job. And if they're not, they might not be the most passionate about the fire service, but they're very passionate about fitness, and that's inspirational and motivational for lots of different people.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's open to everybody, and everybody that can get involved should get involved, because it is good fun. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
There's no real negative to it, apart from when you fall over.
Yeah.
Apart from that,
in front of a big crowd.
Yeah. Other than that, it's great.
Yeah. So like when you're actually competing and you're on the day, what's like? Obviously, there's no easy parts. But what's the hardest bit? What's the bit where your body's screaming at you the most? Is it towards the end, or is it just all the different elements kind of add together?
It's kind of, to be honest with you, up until the Welsh last year, I would have said the last element's my best one. The casualty drag's what I do when we do the relay element, and that's probably where I'd say I win the event, if that makes sense, because for whatever reason, I'm quite good at moving backwards with casualties. Part of that's probably size and weight, but I kind of say I know if I'm ahead up until that last stage,
that's it.
Yeah, and like this year at the British, I was racing against Pete, and I knew I had a few elements. I got ahead of him quite early, and my hose makeup didn't go very well, and I kind of knew that because it was a little bit greasy and just a little bit slippy. That obviously because it's a texture or like a vulcanized rubber for the hose. I knew a little bit of dampness or wetness can affect how it can slide. Yeah. And basically I had that. It slipped a little bit, and as it slips, you lose the tightness to the roll, and that then prevents how fast you can move, because it's more likely for it to what we call a walnut whip. So basically, where the middle come out to the side, and it's if the cup in the middle falls out, it's game over. Yeah. Might as well pack your bags and go home. Like it's so hard to recover from. It's probably impossible to. Yeah. So that didn't go so great. But I knew in my head, I was like, right, as long as I get to the casualty, either ahead of him or at the same time with him, like, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm quids in. And thankfully, like that kind of belief in that, we pretty much got to casualty at similar times, and I just managed to get.
Just knew.
Yeah, I just knew I was happy. I was kind of home and dry.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, then it was just how much have I got left in me to how fast I can move.
Yeah.
But the hardest part is like the stair climb is particularly hard because it's pretty, all of it's there's technical elements to all of it. The stair climb's kind of, if you miss a step or you step too much, that slows you down. If you like trip on a step, that slows you down. The haul, depending on how you haul it, if you miss grab, you lose time. It's like the way I describe the firefighter challenges. It's not like it's a sprint in terms of the 100-meter sprint. The difference between first and second might be like milliseconds.
Yeah.
If there's a second between people, that's like, whoa, that's a large amount.
Yeah.
But a second between people in a marathon, it's like, well, actually, that's not that much. And we work in the areas of seconds and milliseconds realistically. That can separate first, second, third. You know, you give 2 seconds between them people.
Yeah.
So any little misstep, it's costly.
Yeah.
So for me, I'd probably say that what I get most nervous about is probably the stairs in the hall, because it's the first element.
Yeah.
It's the first thing you do. I think as long as I get that out of the way, the rest of it's all right.
Okay.
And you kind of, it sounds daft, but you do the hole, and you can do the hammer. Once you do the hammer, you're kind of halfway.
Yeah.
Somehow I'm like, right, I'm halfway now. Like I feel all right. Just keep going.
I guess getting that first bit out of the way almost like settles your nerves a little bit as well.
Yeah, it does. And it's kind of like you're going now, and going back to like Cush's analogy of press and play, like once you're in it and doing it, you're just, all you're focusing on is just moving quick.
Yeah.
And because we're so, I say, well rehearsed, because we do so much of the training and the way we practice it, we simulate as best we can. You're kind of in autopilot a little bit, and you're just like going through the motions.
Yeah.
And maybe things are in different positions and different size boxes or fill in the blank, but most of it's as lifelike as possible.
Yeah.
So it allows you to just roll through it. So I'd say the first element's the hardest. Hose makeup's probably the most difficult, in my opinion, because it's arguably the most technical as well. And it's the point of which you see most people lose momentum because you have to stop to start the roll. Some people like they'll take a knee and kneel, and it's like when they say a pause becomes a wait, because they're like, the realization of I am absolutely knackered sets in. They just stop, and then they probably freeze a little bit, and they then kind of try to use that as a recovery, which, you know, you can use it for that, but ultimately it's about just keeping, like, having a constant flow to it.
Yeah.
Like get the hose going, and then just keep riding the storm of misery for as long as you can. That's the best way for it. So for me, the hose makeup's the hardest because you would get that natural pause, and it's about trying to keep it going, and also, like we said, one mistap, or if you're not got it quite tight enough and it whips, it's game over. But the rest of them you can kind of recover on. With that one, it's like, you're done.
Yeah.
To touch wood, I've not had that yet.
And then I guess finally tell us about this year. Like, when is it? Where is it? Are you ready for it?
So this year it's going to be in Watford,
Yeah.
and it's the last weekend in July. So it'll be July 25th, I want to say, to 27th. In terms of preparation, I feel like I am. I don't know. We're still training. There's quite a few regional events this year. So North East Challenge, Northamptonshire, South Coast Challenge, different fire brigades and members from them fire rescue services have created a challenge.
Yeah.
And the idea is we've got these little regional pockets, and they were talking about like a league where you compete and you score points, and eventually the kind of the ones that have scored high enough will go to the British and the Welsh Challenge as well. Sorry, and that's kind of the idea going forward. So this year there should be about 7 or 8 British competitions, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past we've had like 1 or 2. It really is, like I said, it's really growing and pushing forward.
Yeah.
And I believe South Yorkshire, their fire chief there is just signed off on, I think it's called fire sport or fire fit sport, but basically they've got a chief now and a fire service to back competitors that compete in the UK, on the UK circuit, but also if they work internationally, there's now going to be a framework for these individuals to sort of know what's expected of them or have some support, which up until now hasn't happened. And John Gregory and the British Firefight Challenge team have been working for this for like 10 years.
Yeah.
So in terms of, for me, it's something I never knew anything about really until I heard the other day. But like John and the team for the British Firefight Challenge, they're doing so much work behind the scenes to push on the competitive side to it. It's like almost that analogy of a society grows great when people plant seeds, trees of which they'll never stand in the shade of. It's that kind of idea that they're working so hard on something that will eventually come to fruition, but it might not come to fruition in their time. Yeah. But they're working as if that doesn't matter.
As if they're going to benefit from it.
Exactly that. They're making something bigger than them and greater than them, which is fantastic. Yeah. And I'd probably say it's the same for all the different firefight challenges as well. You've got individuals that are going way above and beyond the call of duty to make something to encourage others to be as great as they can be. Yeah. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. All these little challenges, obviously, I think most people use to build them towards the British. Yeah. And I'm going to try and do as many as I can really, as a sort of a road to get in there, and hopefully I can retain my title. Yeah. But hey, it's like, you never know. Yeah. I might take a tumble straight away.
There might be someone else training just as hard as you, or you never know.
Exactly that. So yeah, hopefully we'll see. Yeah. All we can do is do our best, and the day the best person wins.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. So. Well, I mean, good luck. It's going to be exciting, and hopefully
be interesting.
Hopefully you can set a new record, or
hopefully, or at least retain it.
At least retain it. Yeah. Right. We'll have another break, mate, and then we'll come back for one more
Perfect.
section. Right.
Thank you.
Right, mate, so we've covered quite a lot from the firefighter challenge to like the early days of you being a firefighter, but let's talk about a little bit of like advice and reflection. Yeah. We are obviously looking to have more people come into the fire as it goes on. So for someone thinking about joining the fire service, what's one thing you wish you'd known when you started?
I think I'd definitely say when you join the fire service, recruits courses can be really intense, and obviously depending on where, different services have different ways of doing it, different cultures and different ideologies and mindsets for recruits courses, but it gets better. It's probably the best thing I can say. Like I said before, is you're told every single week you can exam on Friday, it's pass or fail. Yeah. Pass mark's like 80%. If you fail it, you get another attempt. You fail that, you down the road muttering basically. Which sounds really, really harsh when you hear it for the first time. I think, flipping heck, I've just, for example, when I got into the fire service on my whole-time job, they told us there was 2,000 people that applied for the job, but there was 20 jobs, and we were basically one of the 20. They said you're the 1%. You've basically won the lottery. Yeah. And that was the initial kind of opening to it, and I kind of used that mindset as well to make people realise how appreciative they should be. They've worked hard, don't get me wrong, it takes effort to get in the fire service. Yeah. But you've just got your foot in the door now, like you're now wearing the uniform, your foot's in the door, you've now got to spend how many weeks it is at training school to prove all the people that marked you and put you forward that yes, you were worthy of being a firefighter. And there's going to be things that you're better at, some things you're not so good at, but the key thing is that it's about being as good as you can be. Yeah. And just trying hard, like I said before, one of my roles is assessment of new recruits and instructing new recruits. And the one thing I say to them is that it's effort. As an assessor and an instructor, we can tell who really cares and who's just kind of just there, if that makes sense. And I guarantee the people that are unsuccessful or close to being unsuccessful that really, really care versus don't really care, the impact you can have by taking them aside and telling them, saying, look, you're this close to being unsuccessful. Yeah. I need to see X, Y, and Z. I need you to knuckle down on this. I need you to go and practice this. They go away and they get better. The ones that are just kind of floating, they're the ones that unfortunately we see that become unsuccessful and potentially end up on a capability charge before they've even made it out of training centre. So the key thing, like I said, it gets better, and the key thing is you get out what you put in. So if you put 100% in, the job will give you 100% back. If you put nothing in, you will get nothing back. And that's likewise with your mentors, other firefighters. If you want to learn, you need to show willing. when I first joined my first station, is my watchman said to me, he said, right, you've just got here, you're green, you're fresh, you've done your training school, so you're safe to be on the run, you're safe to ride a fire engine, you know safe systems of work, you know how to wear BA, do X, Y, and Z, cut a car up, but actually they're like the training wheels.
Yeah.
It's like learning to drive a car and say, oh, you've learned to be safe.
You've done your theory.
Yeah. Now you're going to go out into the world and learn how to actually drive when there's no one around you.
Yeah.
That's basically what like your development portfolio is when you're a firefighter towards your competency. And he said to me, right, you're green, you're fresh. For the first couple of months, it's going to be 95% us, 5% you.
Yeah.
So we're going to give you the majority of information, motivation, situations, whatever it is, because we have the experience, we're going to share that with you. And so as we go along month by month, that comes less and less. We input less because you have to input more, because that's the way it's going to work. This is about self-development, it's about developing you. We're going to teach you the foundationary stuff and show you the way, and then once we stop adding so much, you have to sort of follow that up and with it, and that's the only way it's going to work. It says by the time you get to your year in, you've done your probationary period. In the service I initially joined, that's when we went away and you did your team leader. So when we work in BA teams, you have a team leader in a BA wearer, and the team leader is responsible for orientating that team and carrying out a search and a brief, and they're basically responsible for however many people in the team. It might be just you and one other, it might be you're the team leader and there's 4 other people, and you're responsible for all them 4 people. They're still responsible for themselves, they have to look after themselves, and it's not like just, you know, following blindly.
Do as you're told.
Yeah, but you are there to coordinate the search, coordinate briefs, coordinate welfare. You're basically ultimately responsible for that. So at 12 months in my service, you have to go back and basically re-qualify for that. And the idea was that your first 12 months, you'd be a BA wearer, so you'd wear with more experienced firefighters, and they'd teach you the job. But he said, once you've done that and you come back to us, we've now hit 50% mark. It's 50% you, 50% us, and the closer we get towards your competency exam, the final kind of days of your portfolio, it's going to be 95% you, 5% us. Yeah. And that's how to motivate yourself. And I kind of give that conversation now to recruits, is that as you go through your career, you become competent, we're all the same on paper. So you're expected to do X, Y, and Z at a drop of a hat and ask no questions and know a set amount of information about different things. And the way that's set up and done that way is that it's about self-motivating. So once you've done your competency, there are so many people that finish the competency, they know all the knowledge, all the facts, all the figures, the drive to know all that, gone overnight. Yeah. And you see them sat in the TV room, relaxing, playing pool, playing darts, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you need to look at yourself and think, right, okay, I've won the lottery here, I'm the 1%, and to be the 1%, I've got to be great. Yeah. And that's my mindset, and the kind of, I try to sort of instill other people that to be the 1%, you have to act like the 1%. Yeah. The 1% make sure they take care of their physical fitness, they get themselves in the gym, take care of the mental health, and maybe that's having art outlooks, hobbies outside the fire service, or maybe that's talking in a certain way, or creating an environment where people can talk. But the third thing is we have to know our job really, really well, because there may come a time where we have to do some really difficult things and you're by yourself. And if I say I need you to tie off a certain thing, tie a certain knot, or anchor me or anchor that, I know that you can do that. And if you can't do that, you've now jeopardised yourself, me, and your colleagues. Yeah. And ultimately that then means we can't be an effective fire rescue service. Yeah. So they're the kind of things I've kind of tried to instill in people. And that's what I'd say anyone coming to the fire rescue service and throughout their career is that reflect upon the fact that you are in the 1%. Yeah. And be proud of that and use that to be, like I said, what would the person in the 1% do? They'd be really, really good at it because you've been good enough to get to this stage. Yeah. So let's go on and be great, and just keep learning. Yeah. You're going to forget things, like we all forget things. Yeah. But like we said before, the best things we can do is experience situations. Operational incidences make readiness. Yeah. And some stations, and depending if you're whole time or on call, the level of operational response is different. Yeah. So you're not going to get hands-on experience, but then read a book, read a manual, read about how a BA set works, or how a pump works. Ask people on station, get their information, ask them to talk about things. Use that your development period in the fire service as your education at school. You're going to ask people that know more than you about certain things, and you need to glean as much information from them as possible. So just keep asking questions.
Almost like ask 3 different people about the same scenario. If
Exactly.
they give you 3 different versions, you can almost put together your ideal version
Exactly
of it.
that. Exactly that. And that's the best thing I can advise people. 1, it gets better. 2, remember how hard you probably worked to get to where you get to, and think how many people would love to be in your position, and use that as fuel to keep yourself motivated. Because don't get me wrong, I've worked at slow stations where it's quiet and you're not operationally ready, and that's great for members of the public, but ultimately you join the fire service to go out and do the job. And if you're not doing that, you can get complacent, you can get frustrated, you can run out of motivation. And maybe it's a personality trait, maybe it's me, but I know there's other people out there that like me, that I just have that reflection, right, how lucky am I to be here? Just because I'm not doing this thing right now doesn't mean I'm not going to go to that incident. So, and especially, like I said, becoming a junior officer, I'm now responsible for everyone's safety, and I'm the person making the calls or influencing the calls, and I now carry a rank of which has some level of authority but responsibility. So for me, there is no time to sit in the TV room and do nothing. I need to be reading books, reading policy, reading procedure, learning about different things, because ultimately that's going to save either my colleagues' lives and my firefighters' lives, or it's going to save members of the public's lives. And you can't, I said it before to people, you can't be too fit and too good for a job that can kill you. And that's kind of the way I try to look at things, is that that's the way it is. You know, we're not doing a job where we can call time out, so I'm done now. There is no time out. The job's done when it's finished. So it's just take each day as it comes, and don't be afraid to fail. Failure is not fail. There will be plenty of times where you're unsuccessful at things, or things don't go the way you want it to. And the amount of times I've made mistakes, like I can remember having this really vivid story where I was a probationary firefighter, and we went to a fire on a farm, and we're running out of water, a really, really limited water supply in quite a rural area. We're talking to the farmer, and he's like, we've got a slurry pit. So how, and it's like night time, it's like 7 o'clock at night, dark, winter. Like, how big's the slurry pit? He's like, it's X, Y. I can't think how big it was now. I'm thinking, that doesn't sound too big, but maybe a slurry pit, might be fed from underground. It might only be a small opening, but a bigger bit underground. Anyway, long story short, we set all this light portable pump, which is like a little portable pump, set it all up, hard suction in, start pumping slurry, which is obviously a lot of that's going to be excrement from animals, not great if it gets on your skin. We're pumping it, and because we ran out so many lengths of 70mm hose, each length holds around 90 litres of water for it to be charged, right? So what me and this other firefighter didn't calculate is that if we've got 10 lengths of 7 metre hose, each length takes 90 litres. If that slurry pit only holds 1,000 litres, well, we're going to fill all the hose full of slurry, and the time it gets to where it's being delivered,
It's not going to be able to come out.
No, not got enough, and we've emptied the pit. So we set all of it up. Water's coming, and then we sat there and like there's no water coming. We're like, oh dear. We've literally just filled hose full of slurry, and the moment it will get to the end, it's gone, because there is nothing to back. There's no constant source, and it was that situation where literally there's firefighting pumps trying to save someone's property, and albeit we're trying to make the most of a bad situation, but our miscalculation, we've wasted time when we could have gone and done something else. Maybe we'd gone and found a hydrant on the street, ran lamps out. Maybe they'd got a water source elsewhere, a pond, a lake, whatever it may be, a river, a brook. And I always dawn back and this time thinking, I'm never going to make this mistake ever again. And since then, that experience of having that failure, I'm like, right, if we're going to pump from something that's not a limited source of water, I'm going to go and physically look at it and do some rough calculations, and then I'll go from there. So again, failure is not fail, but it does give you some funny stories.
So just on kind of looking back at failures, how do you take care of your own mental health outside of the job? Are there routines or practices that help you unwind? Is it the fitness that helps, or is there other things as well that you look at?
I think the fitness is a massive part of it. having ADHD, it's kind of, that is my kind of grounding.
Yeah.
If I don't go out and move, don't exercise, I get jittery. I just struggle to focus.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like my routine, habitual thing. I will train, and I train 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes it's 6 days, but I'd say it's mostly 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And it's not all flat out stuff. I do a CrossFit, so it'd be 5 days a week CrossFit. The 2 days might be like a recovery run, or a recovery run's the kind of optional.
Yeah.
But the one other mandatory is the firefight training.
Yeah.
So 5 days of CrossFit and at least one kind of firefight training a week, sometimes two, depending on how my shifts fall and availability of other people in our challenge team to do it. Because the firefight challenge is hard to do by yourself.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep that level of motivation because you're doing something real difficult, and you kind of, it's nice to have someone else there having that shared suffering.
So someone else struggling as well.
Exactly that.
Because you don't want to let them down, they don't want to let you down, so
Exactly.
you push each other.
Whereas the CrossFit stuff is just turn up, do it, and it's against a class.
Yeah.
And I'm competitive, so that's fine. So that's kind of like the key kind of thing. Obviously, my wife's a paramedic as well, and she's fantastic. She's awesome. So any kind of, and because we work in very similar kind of industries, she gets it, and I get it for her, so we can have that conversation about stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'm quite fortunate that in terms of my group of mates, a lot of my very close friends are in the fire service as well, and either work for the same one as me or work in neighbouring services, so that they get the job as well. So we can have them conversations and kind of unwind, and like we got promoted at the same time. Yeah. So we go to different jobs because we're on different shifts and different stations. We can have them conversations. Oh, we went to this job, we did X, Y, and Z, and what do you think to that? And just been able to debrief ourselves and talk about things and talk things through it. That kind of helps. What I said before about the kind of PTSD kind of side of things, it helps you process what you've gone through, how to deal with it, whether or not the response we made was correct or not correct, or fill in the blank. It's just nice to have a support network where you can talk quite openly to people that understands what job you're doing, what you're going through. And then, I've got very fortunate in my family as well. My mum and my dad, my sister. Also, my dad, I've done over 20 years in the fire service. He gets it as well. And because my mum and my sister obviously went through that same as me, they kind of get it. So they have enough understanding that I can talk about something and they know what it means. Yeah. And likewise now, Zoe's parents, obviously, with us both working in the same industries, they kind of get it as well. Yeah. And the funny thing is, we won 2 years ago, well, this year in the 2023-2024, myself and Kerry Large, we won Best BA Wearers at the National BA Challenge, which is a team event at the Fire Service College, and they basically set live fires and scenarios, and you turn up as a crew of 5 and you basically resolve the incident. Yeah. And the last 2 years, me and Kerry have won Best BA Wearers, so we've won our segment of the sort of search and rescue and firefighting. Yeah. And in 2024, we won the overall. So Cush won his fireground setup, and me and Kerry won the Best BA, and overall we won as a team, which is a fantastic achievement. But the first year we did it, because the awards, the Best BA Wearer, Zoe's parents obviously, congratulations, you've won it, fantastic. Zoe's mum thought the Best BA Wearer was the best person to wear BA, as in a fashion contest. And because we're wearing our undress uniform for the ceremony, she's like, you look fantastic, look really, really smart, blah, blah, blah. And then I think Zoe must have explained to what it meant. She's like, oh, I did not realise. She's like, I thought it was a bit odd that he was like won like a fashion contest. So yeah, I'm very fortunate that everyone kind of understands it, and like this conversation I'm having now, I'm quite an open person with it, so I'm not afraid to talk about the job, and talk about as and when ultimately we go to some pretty tough things. And like mates that I go to the gym with as well, they've been around me long enough that they know what the job entails and ask questions. So they kind of, I'm quite fortunate that they care enough to know enough about the job that I can kind of talk, even throw in like some specific lingo, and they kind of understand it. Yeah. So I am very, very fortunate for that. And the challenge is probably the big focus as well. Just having that constant goal. Yeah. And with that means I'm constantly around other people that are all like-minded. So that's kind of how I look after it. And then, like I said before about that reflective kind of thing, is that we go to difficult things and I just try to take the silver lining out of it. Yeah. And try to do my bit whenever I can, whether it's helping people, random acts of kindness. I'm not saying I do it all the time, I don't, but if I get the opportunity to do that, that's what I'll try to do. And that's what I truly believe. I think you go to these tough scenarios or see people in difficult spots, and it does naturally bring about a kind of very empathetic, caring part in everybody, I'd say. As we go to these tough jobs, and maybe the fatal incidents, or it's tough in terms of the living conditions that some people live in, people come back to the station and normally are a bit more, give each other more grace, is how I'd put it. People are more empathetic, more sympathetic to situations, less quick to become angry about certain things. And I think that's how to kind of encapsulate all of it. Is I'm fortunate enough to come away and be reflective enough to process things so that they don't kind of creep up in the future. And don't get me wrong, like there's some things that are difficult to process, but it just takes time. And I think it's that problem shared to problem halved type mentalities I've always kind of taken forward. And that's what's helped me to kind of stay kind of grounded, really.
How have you found, or how do you personally find the difference between like maybe some of the more old school firefighters who are like the older boys? Do they talk a lot, or is that something that's more of a new generational thing, or is it a real mix?
I think it's a real mix. Like I remember the first kind of fatality I went to, and we had to recover the gentleman's body. Everyone on the watch was like twice my age. They could have been my dad. And they kind of took that kind of mentality that I was kind of a young whippersnapper, I was keen to learn. And we get thrust in the situation, we're going to recover this body. And unfortunately, the gentleman, he is an underrunner in a car, so obviously he's quite buried deep within the trailer. And we dealt with the incident, we recovered him, we put him in the body bag and sort of set him off. And we have something diffusing, which is basically, we have members within the service, this is my previous service, we have members in that service that they come out and they help you to initially kind of come to terms of what you've gone to. They're not therapists or nothing like that. It's just signposting people, having a conversation saying how you feel now is normal. You've gone to something very traumatic. You've seen something that most people won't see. Might be your first time, and it's normal to feel sort of disconnected from the world or whatever the feeling may be. It's about normalising it. And again, all these blokes have been in 30 odd years during the 90s, where it was very macho. Some of them joined when the job was fireman, so the very old school blokes, but all of them, without me even saying anything, said, yeah, we're going to have diffusing because it's good for you. Because when we joined, it didn't exist. It was more black humour, and as a watch, you spoke about it. But even they said when they joined, it was that tough of a lip, just get on with it.
Just get on with it.
And even some of them said, like, because back then, there was bars and stations, and it wasn't uncommon for firefighters to drink on duty. And it's kind of the culture, you're allowed to have a drink on duty. So there's so many alcoholics in the fire service. It says maybe that's because access to a bar, 4 days a week, basically, very cheap pints. Maybe that's what it was. But then I've had one conversation with my mentor of mine. He sort of said, he kind of reflected upon it and said, well, maybe that was the kind of the warning signs and the call out for help, because they were using alcohol to kind of potentially deal with stressful situations. And he said, the ones that he saw that were alcoholics, their life unravelled. And he said they didn't join the fire service as alcoholics, they became alcoholics. And maybe that's because the culture, the environment was, we get on with it, we don't talk about it. That was their outlet. So I was really fortunate that these six blokes were like, we're going to do it. And we sat there and they were dead open, honest, and to be fair, it took me back, because these are like tough blokes. All of them are tough blokes, and wore a stone on their face. Kind of, you wouldn't be able to tell how they were feeling, how they were thinking. But all of them were dead open, and that kind of helped me process it, but also realising that I think one of them said to me, you've got to be strong enough to be gentle sometimes. You've got to be strong enough in yourself and your sort of compassions and your convictions that you can open yourself up and be soft to other people. And that kind of really stuck with me. And from there on in, it's kind of, I've always been an advocate of talking about it. There's no harm in it. And I think just because you feel a certain way, like we said about thoughts, the thoughts doesn't define who you are. Like thoughts are like a river, they're constantly flowing. It doesn't mean they're you. And I think, every now and again we go to some difficult situations, or different things affect people. Maybe animals affect people more than in human life, and vice versa. You just don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to breed that culture that you can talk about it. So I would say the sort of modern fire service probably are more open to talk about things. I do think sometimes that comes with difficulties in itself, because maybe we don't always recruit people that are probably resilient enough to do the job, as in the actual sort of nitty gritty of what the job is.
Yeah. They're physically fit enough and they're smart enough, but it's just that resilience.
It's the kind of they say top 2 inches. And I think you can recruit for that. And I think where sometimes some fire services fall down, and I've spoken about it before, which I think is unfair, is we don't tell people what the role fully entails.
Yeah.
We tell them, like, you're going to run a big red fire engine, you're going to do community engagement, you're going to talk to people about fire safety, you're going to put fires out. But they don't say that, well, actually, a part of putting fires out is recovering deceased bodies that have had smoke inhalation and they've died, or rescuing someone and doing CPR on that person whilst the entire street's staring at them. They don't tell you that might be recovering someone's loved one that died next to them, and you're trying to cut the person that survived out of the car. They don't tell you any of that information.
Yeah.
And like I said before, you don't know what you're capable of until you're exposed to it. But I tell you what definitely helps is having honest conversations with people and telling them that, look, like, you've won the lottery, you've got this job. However, a part of this job involves, at times, you may have to recover people that have been burnt or died of smoke inhalation. You're going to have to pick that person up, and you're going to find them in the middle of a smoke-filled dark room. It's hot. And you're going to find that person in whatever state they're in, and you're responsible for trying to preserve that person's life and get them out as fast as you can. That's your job now.
Yeah.
Or likewise, go to a road traffic collision and someone's lost their arm. You're now responsible for dealing with that traumatic incident in terms of applying a tourniquet, direct pressure, preventing loss of life further. And you may have to talk to that person and explain to them, by the way, unfortunately, they might be saying, where's my arm? I can't feel my arm. And you've got to say, I'm sorry to tell you, but you've lost your arm.
Yeah.
But we're going to do everything we can now to get you out of the car. And it's them conversations that I think some people may hear that and think, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
And that is totally fine. I always say there should be no barriers to join the fire service. We should make sure the playing field is as level as possible, and that everyone has equity and equality to join and be a part of it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean everyone can do it.
Yeah.
Likewise for lots of different jobs. There's very stressful jobs in the world that not everyone can do. And this is exactly the same. Like, I couldn't be a palliative care nurse. I just couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're just, to me, it's same with my wife Zoe. Like, the stuff she has to deal with and the conversations she has. Someone's had a cardiac arrest and it's witnessed by the family members. And she's working on somebody administering drugs, and the next conversation she has is, sorry, unfortunately, I have to tell you that. She's basically giving them a running commentary of what's happening, because they know that the research suggests that when you talk to these people in very honest, frank, straight conversations, that we process things better.
Yeah.
And she has to say, like, we're doing this now, we've done everything we can, but unfortunately, Frank is no longer with us, and we can't do anything more, so we're going to cease any kind of medical intervention.
Yeah.
That conversation, I think I've maybe said that to somebody once before, that unfortunately that person's no longer with us, and there's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing the howl of that person, and just thinking, how does someone do that, like a palliative care nurse, or just fill in the blank? I just couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And it's the same for the fire service. Like, we're very dynamic. We have to do some pretty grim and dirty things, and we pass the baton to somebody else. We kind of get them ready. We get them out, get them ready, and let somebody else deal with them.
Yeah.
And I think we need to have more of them conversations with new recruits.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, when you join the job, your career could be 40 years. Or I joined at 20, my career will hopefully be 40 years. It's a long time to go if you've been ill prepared for the job.
Yeah.
And I think, again, there's no shame in not knowing, but I think it is a shame if we don't tell people what's expected, what's ultimately the job's going to entail. And I think by doing that, you're going to get the right people.
Yeah.
But it's fair. It's telling people,
Yeah.
this is the way it's going to
Yeah,
be.
it's no different to any other job. You wouldn't
Exactly.
you wouldn't hire someone for, let's say, like an office job and not tell them what the role's going to entail, and then when they turn around and say they can't do it in 3 weeks' time, you say, well, why not?
Yeah, we can tell them to do this, and I think that's the important thing, and that comes back to mental health. Fill in the blank. That honest conversation will go so far, and that's the thing I try to not preach. That's the wrong way to put it, but that's what I try to instill with people. Whenever people ask me about the fire service, I would tell them, like I said to you, it's the best job in the world. It is. You will have some days where you're bent over, you can't breathe for laughing, and there's some incredible personalities, some fantastic people, and you'll get to do some fantastic things, see fantastic things, have operational incidents go really well, save someone's property, save someone's life, save someone's loved one, whatever it is, have fantastic high moments. But like everything, like, yin and yang, there's always an equal amount of negative things or hard things to deal with.
Yeah.
And I think we need to have a balanced, professional conversation about what that looks like.
Yeah.
And that'll prepare people a lot better for the job.
Yeah.
So that might sound a little bit of a Debbie Downer there.
No, not at all. No.
There's a seriousness to it, and I'm passionate about ensuring that people are aware of that.
Yeah.
No surprises.
Your passion for your work and what you do and everything kind of around it is absolutely infectious. I guess finally, and probably quite an emotional question really, what does being a firefighter mean to you beyond the title, beyond the action? What does wearing the badge and being able to tell people you are a firefighter mean to you?
It's something I'm very proud of. Like I said before, when I joined, we were told you're the 1%. And I remember I worked for a bloke called Matt Brookfield, and he's retired now, or going to be retiring. And he was in the military before, and he'd say when he joined at 16, he went and spoke to their sergeant major, and he sat him down, said, welcome to the regiment, blah, 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 gave him the spiel. And he said this analogy, he said, whenever you go to war, out of every 100 men, he's like, 80 of them shouldn't be there. 10 of them could probably be there, but probably aren't good enough yet. So that means you've got 90 people that probably aren't fit for it. He said, out of them 100 people, one of them's a warrior, and they're designed to fight. They are the perfect specimen. They've got everything, divine intervention, the calling, whatever you want to call it. They are an out-and-out warrior, and they will win and they'll turn the tide of any battle. He said, but in order for that warrior to come to his full fruition, he needs 9 other men. He says, be in that top 10. Either be the warrior or be one of the 9 to bring the warrior through. I remember him sitting down and telling that to me, and it gave me like these goosebumpy things of like, right, okay. And the way I look at that in the fire service is that you might not be the best, but you might be surrounded by someone that is the best. Mm-hmm. And you're no less important than the best person there, but we're a team.
Yeah.
So you can't do anything without others. So for me, the sort of the pride of being in the job means that I've got this job over somebody else. And rightly or wrongly, they might have been better than me, but I need to make sure that I do everything I can to be the best that I can be, to allow others to be the best they can be.
Yeah.
I take immense pride in it. I think it's, some people say like it's a calling, and for me it probably is. And for some people that might sound a bit sickly and a bit something else, but I truly do believe like this is, I couldn't think of another job.
Yeah.
Like I've said before, it'd probably be like a military or something like that. I guess I kind of seek something with a higher calling than me, mm-hmm. really. Something that I can believe in. And if you look at anything, the sort of fire service is probably the most socialist idea, that we all pay a little bit and all of us can receive so much. Yeah. And we're completely and utterly unbiased of who we help. You call for help, we turn up. It's not like the police or the ambulance service where they're so stretched. If you call for the fire service, you're going to get a fire engine, and you're going to get 4 or 5 or 6 people that are as skilled and as trained as they can possibly be, and all they want to do is resolve your problems. Mm-hmm. And it might be you call, we've got times where people, they burst a water pipe in the house, and they're maybe elderly, or maybe they're young parents or the teenagers, and they've got no idea where the water stopgap is, and you turn up and it's a simple fix. But our interaction with them is that we're a service that ultimately we're not here for that, but we're here to protect your property. Yeah. And we can show you and teach you, well, come with me, let me show you. This is your stopgap, mm-hmm. So we turn your water off, on and off, your whole house, and they then learn something. We're not here to turn up and deliver a bollocking and tell them that they're silly and they've done X, Y, and Z. we're not here for that. We're here to try and help. And if we can educate along the way, that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of what makes me proud to do it, is that ultimately we are kind of the only emergency service that, regardless of what's happening, we're kind of there to make your day as best as it can be. And yeah, I take immense pride in that. I take immense pride in being as good as I can be. And I take immense pride in trying to make others as good as they can be. And sometimes that is just giving people the confidence to realise actually they are fantastic. There's some firefighters I've worked with, like I've won a few different competitions for fitness. I've won some stuff in terms of professional at the National BA Challenge. I've took part in like the UCRO event, and there's blokes I know and women that are probably far better than me. They have the capacity to be phenomenal firefighters, but they've maybe no one's ever instilled the confidence in them to really push on.
Yeah. And
I think I see myself now in the position that I'm in, that I'm lucky enough to be able to influence that and help push people on. And that's what it means to me. Ultimately, it's about being as good as I can be, but trying to equip and promote others to be as good as they can be. And ultimately, as a watch, as a team, whatever you want to call it, when we're called upon to do our work, we will be the most professional, well-rounded crew you can have. And ultimately give the best possible response and hopefully alleviate someone's pain and misery as best as we can.
Yeah.
And trying to be, well, like balances, we try to rebalance everything. You know, your world's been turned upside down, we're trying to flip it back around and tidy things up. It's like we might make entry to someone's house, smash a window, climb in, the paramedics in, and the next thing we're doing is hoovering up. And that's the way the fire service is. We might make a mess, but we'll make sure we take care of it. And we leave situations as best we can. And I think that's the kind of thing that I can take away, that wherever we go, we try to make things better.
Yeah.
And like I said, there'll always be people that, you know, bring a bad light to the fire service, but thankfully they are few and far between. And it's just about, like I said, if you're in the 1%, think and be like the 1%, and bring others with you. And I think that's kind of how I look at it now. Just trying to be the best I can and bring the people along with me, and go for as long as I can. Yeah. Hopefully for the next 32 years till I'm 80. So till I'm 60, sorry. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now with it.
Matt, I can't describe to you how much I've enjoyed chatting to you about your service. I listened to every word and I've learnt so much and I've thoroughly enjoyed it, mate. It's been inspiring, honest, and really powerful, again, to look behind the sirens and see what the real life of a firefighter is. Thank you so much for coming in to see us. No, honestly, you're welcome back anytime. That is episode 1 done for us, and it's been an absolute pleasure, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No worries.